Can you hear me? Okay, cool.
I am so going to miss this rabbinic search. I'm working with the most amazing group of people. We're going to keep doing dinners once a month. Anyway, in the meantime, we're going to do a Q&A with Rabbi Feinberg. And again, thank you for spending the Shabbat with us. We've just really enjoyed having you with us.
It's been our pleasure to be here.
So, over to you all. Questions? I know what your question is. I'll start.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So my question, for those that didn't hear the answer yesterday, but I think is really important for the community, is how would you attract the disenfranchised portion of our community, the ones that are not here on a regular basis? How would you reach out to them? We have a various number of minyanim here that all attract different communities, and sometimes it's not a matter of attracting them, it's a matter of us finding them. And how would you go about that, and how important do you think that actually is to the community?
Wow, so I think, can everyone hear me? It's not too loud? Okay. It's a really important question, and I think in some ways it's like the question in some ways of this particular moment in the Jewish community is how do we find and then attract people of different demographics, and especially people who, for whatever reason, are currently not coming into the building. And so one of the things that I would want to do sort of day one of getting here, well, I guess before day one, I would want to confirm that I have a large budget for taking people out to coffee. And then on day one, I would like to start finding people who are either members of the community, but only sort of nominally, or people who are adjacent to the community, people who could be a part of our community, and just sit, get some coffee or tea or whatever people like to drink, and listen to them and ask what it is that they're looking for. Since I think, unfortunately, gone are the days when people are just going to come to the synagogue because that's what everyone does. You hit a certain age and you just join a synagogue. We have to be a little bit more proactive, and that means reaching out to people who aren't already just members, but also people who could be members who are adjacent to our community. So that's sort of step one. And then hopefully really listening to them and saying, okay, what is it that you're looking for? And it might be, and I think we have to find ourselves open to the answer, that it might be that people are not looking for, oh, I'm looking for a shul and I just wanted somebody to invite me in. It might be that I'm looking for a group of peers to spend time with in maybe a Jewish context. And how can we facilitate that? And so I want to be thinking really with a sort of open mind about what community might look like moving forward, and how do we extend people the invitation to participate in community that is not bound by the four walls of the synagogue. And so I think thinking about, okay, can community look like me going to you and meeting you in your place of work and learning together with a bunch of people, go to downtown LA, get a bunch of people together, a lunchtime learning session. Can that be something that counts as community? Can community be, okay, here is a bunch of supplies for a Shabbat dinner. We're going to hand it off to you, and you're going to do Shabbat dinner in your home. And here are the benchers, and here's the challah, and here are all those things. Or can community look like, you know what, actually you're going to have your own type of Friday night Shabbat experience, but it's actually not going to take place in the synagogue, and we're okay that it might not. And maybe we'll send one of the rabbis or one of the chazanim to you to spend some time teaching you how to do those things and empowering people. And I think the combination of meeting people where they're at and asking them what they're looking for, and then trying to empower them to create their own communal experiences, hopefully within the context of Aliyah, and hopefully within the context of this wonderful caring community and community of caring, but with a willingness and an open-mindedness that it might not be literally here in this room at all times.
I have a text question.
Amazing. What a world we live in.
One of the congregants, first of all, would like to apologize to you for yesterday afternoon and for the for all the misunderstandings around the Israel question, and would like that congregant would like to also ask you briefly if you could just clarify your position as your feelings towards the importance of Israel in the Jewish American community and ours specifically.
Yeah, it's funny, I spend a lot of time thinking about Israel as someone who actually, my father's family had made Aliyah, and I'm actually technically an Israeli citizen. I spent a lot of time thinking about Israel and think about how important it is and sad it in so many ways that so many members of our community find themselves disaffected from Israel and find it hard to talk about. And I think Israel is a cornerstone of Judaism, and in many ways the relationship between Israel and America and the Israeli and American Jewish communities is a cornerstone of the Jewish experience of being an American. And so I want to support that in any way I can, whether that's leading trips to Israel, whether that's teaching about Israel, bringing in speakers who are passionate and care about Israel, and also engaging congregants and people in the community about what we can do to support Israel and what we can do to push Israel in directions that feel appropriate to us, and what we can do to connect both to the people and the land and the state as well.
Hi. Rabbi Oren, who was a beloved former rabbi of ours, said and used to say that he has a rabbi and a Rebbe. His rabbi was Brad Artson, and his Rebbe, Mimi Feigelson. So I'm going to ask you this really strange question. If you were to think about where you are in terms of your Jewish practice, your philosophy, your Bima approach, whatever, do you consider yourself more of a rabbi or a Rebbe?
Wow, that's a really awesome question. I would say, I think, right now I'm a rabbi, or I'm going to be a rabbi soon. Hopefully I get ordained in a couple of months. Got to finish all my classes first. I think when I'll start out, I'll be a rabbi. And I think by nature of what a community looks like, a rabbi is something you are. You get the sort of the certificate that says you're a rabbi. And a Rebbe is hopefully something I could grow into being. And I think I can't make myself a Rebbe. Only other people can make me their Rebbe. And I would be honored to serve as someone's Rebbe and for them to consider me that person. But I don't think that's like a choice I get to make. I think that's a way of finding yourself in community and finding yourself in relationship. And it would be like I said, it would be my honor to be the Rebbe of a person or the Rebbe of a community. But I don't want to be presumptuous that that's what's going to happen the second I get here. I think I'm going to start out as a rabbi, and I would love to be open to finding ways to be able to be someone's Rebbe.
Okay, quick follow-up. Okay, to clarify just a little bit, we, in the great, broad congregation that we are, we have, besides the more traditional services and text study and this and that, we also have a healing kind of thing, a neshama minyan, all different kinds of things that I hate to lump everything into the word more spiritual, but more.
But it's helpful.
All right, spiritual, meditative, personal, experiential. Have you had an experience? Are you comfortable?
Yeah. So I had a really great experience when I was serving as the rabbinic fellow at Binghamton University, at the Hillel at Binghamton University in New York. And I was leading all of the Yom Kippur services. In some ways, I'm a more traditional guy. I connect to traditional modes of Jewish expression and prayer and spirituality. And I realized in the middle of at the beginning of the Musaf service that if I just davened or did the prayers the way I'm used to, and the way that in some ways is more comfortable for me, I would be doing a grave disservice to the 200 other people in the room. It wouldn't be fair because it's not what they were looking for. It wasn't how they were going to connect. And I think one of the things I think a lot about myself in my own personal practice is I'm not becoming a rabbi so that I can have the best personal davening experience for me, and it's all about myself. I hope that I'm becoming a rabbi so that I can serve the Jewish people in whatever form they need. And so for that, I'm really open to a lot of different types of experiences, a lot of different modalities of engaging with Judaism. I'm lucky. I understand certain things, and I have a background in Judaism in like a traditional sense, and my job and the way I see it is to make it relevant to people and help people connect. And so I'm very much open to thinking about where, and if I'm here in Aliyah, how can I bring myself fully in an authentic way to help other people figure out authentic expressions for their own Judaism. And that's something I'm really excited about. I don't want to be presumptuous and say this is exactly what I do, because I actually don't know the community well enough right now to say this is how I would do it. But I'm really excited to think about where are the opportunities that might exist that allow me to share what I love about Judaism and to teach what I love about Judaism to help people connect, whether that's spiritually or emotionally or in a sense of healing or in an intellectual sense or in a traditional religious sense. Any of those ways, I'm really excited about the opportunities to connect.
Based on your answer, my question may not be so good, but what I was going to ask you was, obviously you can't know the community that well in just a weekend, but you can have an opinion.
Yeah.
So based on your opinion, because obviously there's a life-changing decision that's coming up, both for Temple Aliyah and for yourself, potentially. And based on the little bit that you do have available to make that decision on, what do you see as what I yesterday asked you what you assess to be the essence of Temple Aliyah, but the question is, what do you believe is what you feel that you bring? Because this is effectively a job interview, and so the question is, like any other job interview, why should we hire you? And the question is, I'm blunt and to the point. It doesn't matter. I'm just, shoot from the hip. So what do you bring that you see based on whatever you have been able to assess? What do you feel that you're thinking, gee, if I got this position, I would love to, if there was an opportunity, to be able to bring this to Temple Aliyah, if given the opportunity. And the second question related to that is, what do you see, whether it was you doing it or not, based on your gut feeling so far, the greatest need? What's the hole that Temple Aliyah maybe has that you've, in your reasonably vast experience, because you're obviously not 80 years old, to have had an opportunity to, in your exposure, to say, gee, I'm surprised they don't have this going on so far.
So it's about the first question. I would say something I'm really passionate about and happens, at least to a certain extent, is that people actually understand what it is that they're saying in terms of tefillah. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to create learners minyanim that are focusing on what are we actually saying? Because we oftentimes in the context of like minyan and tefillah, we like say the words and they sort of are this like chanty mumble, and maybe we understand a brief part here or there, but we don't get necessarily the full picture. And I'm not going to suggest that I know everything, but that there's a lot to be learned, there's a lot to be gleaned, and so I want to encourage people to like dive deep into like reading and actually understanding and learning what it is that we're saying. And then once we understand what it is that we're saying, we can actually have a conversation about whether we agree or disagree with the things that we're saying and the things that we're putatively praying for. And that's something that I'm really excited about doing. I'd say, and there's a lot of like really exciting singing happening here at Aliyah, and I'm excited to be a part of that. I think one of the things I bring is actually have like a decent background in some like more traditional forms of Jewish singing and Jewish song, whether that's something like Sudash Sheet singing, which I've like facilitated at Ramah, Wisconsin for hundreds of campers and staff members, or something like a mishmar in preparation for Shabbat on a Thursday night kind of situation, and bringing some of those more sort of like classic, not that necessarily classic is better, but classic modes of Jewish connection and singing and prayerful moments, and I'm excited to figure out ways to do that in spaces that are big and have high ceilings and people can sit wherever they want, and also places where people have to sit in small circles with low ceilings and acoustics are slightly better and the feeling can be a little bit more welcoming. And so trying to figure out where those opportunities exist to bring that in. In terms of my assessment of things that I think, you said like sort of like a want or a need that I've like assessed about Temple Aliyah. Is that, yeah. So, one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is the nature of politics in the community and the ways in which politics, and this came up a little bit yesterday in the Q&A, and it's come up in other conversations I've had, is a really fraught thing, not just here at Aliyah, but in communities really all over the country. This is like a really complicated, fraught idea. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying that I want to speak about politics from the bema, but I really want to think about how are ways that the synagogue can serve as a place of open, reasonable, public discourse. And how can the synagogue facilitate, through ideally Jewish methodologies of disagreement, an idea of like machloket l'shem shamayim, a disagreement for the sake of heaven, where even though we are passionate about our disputes and we are passionate about our positions, we're also open to the idea that we can be wrong, and we're open to the idea that we can change our opinion. And thinking about where are the spaces in the community that we can do that. And again, it's not because I think that things are, falling apart at the seams in terms of politics here, but I think that there seems to be a real need and want for ways to create opportunities for people to talk about what they actually think and believe and feel and are passionate about. And I think that that's, if the synagogue is going to be a relevant space in people's lives, and if this type of community, which is intergenerational and really diverse, which is uncommon for most people in their lives to be a part of actually communities that are widely diverse, those things are going to remain relevant and worthwhile, then we have to also be able to say, oh, it's not just that we sit at Kiddush with like our, at our table, but every now and then we come in and we talk about things that matter. And we actually engage with things that matter and think about what are the models for creating and facilitating those types of conversations. And that's something that I would be really interested to partner with the clergy and the professional staff in the community to think about how do we bring that in and how do we do that in a way that is respectful and worthwhile.
Two interrelated, possibly interrelated questions. When the postings came out, and there were, I don't know how many dozens of openings, why Aliyah and why California?
Why California is the same reason I ask people why they moved out here, and they say it's California. Duh. Like the weather, just look outside for a second, it's beautiful. When I'm going back to New York later today, it's not going to be so lovely, but it's not just about, obviously it's not just about the weather. Everything I've ever heard or seen about California is this is a beautiful place, and people here seem to be really passionate about where they're from and seem to really care about being from here and this like identity of being here. People have been talking all weekend about West Coast Judaism. It's its own specific, unique thing, and I'm really excited to see that since I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Chicago, but I've been living in New York for 5 years, and so I'm excited to see what the rest of the American Jewish community has to offer in that sense. And why specifically Aliyah? Said when the postings come out, reading through all of these communities have to provide pages and pages and pages worth of information about themselves. So in some ways, I might know more about the community than some people here, at least on paper. And what comes across is how much a community cares in what they're putting forward. Right? What does it look like? What does it feel like to read that description? And what it felt like reading the description of the community in the questionnaire, what it felt like reading the materials on the website and watching some of the YouTube videos of the services here, because you got to do your research, were that this was a really interesting place and a place that people seem to be very passionate about. Everything I've gotten out of our time here has been how much this place in particular means something. And you could belong to X or Y other shul, which maybe has a other great reputation and another really well-regarded rabbi, but people choose to belong here because there's something special here and there's like a vibrancy here and there's a willingness to try new things. That's been sort of a major theme that I've been picking up on over the course of the past couple of days. And also, I don't know if he's watching, but I've heard really excellent things about Rabbi Vogel. and his mentorship. And no, you're smiling, but I'm really serious. Those are some of the things that I'm thinking about, as I think about the beginning of my rabbinate. I'm really excited about the possibility of learning from a master and learning from people who are masters of their craft, not just in terms of Rabbi Vogel, but also in terms of the rest of the clergy team who seem to be really excellent. I'm really excited about the prospect of learning what it looks like to be a part of and to run a really successful, thriving institution. This place is vibrant. I was here on Friday morning watching all of the ECE kids run in their Purim costumes. And it was this really beautiful moment of saying, like, oh, the synagogue is not just people my age and older who are, thinking about davening and praying and coming here for Shabbat, but it's also, there's lively and there's things going on. And so there's a sense that this is a really well-run, successful, happy institution that's open to try new things and open to allow someone to come in and bring their own energy to the situation. And those are some of the reasons why I think it would be so awesome and really powerful to be here.
So if you had a crystal ball, but also a genie's lantern, where would you see yourself being most fulfilled and happy in 10 years?
Wow, in 10 years. I don't know where. It's hard for me to imagine where, since I think too much time is spent on saying, like, oh, this community is really different from this community. Communities obviously are different, have their own idiosyncrasies and all of those things, but like, I'm not as convinced about the geographic differences in American Jewry than other people are. But I'm really, again, as I said about the start of my rabbinate, I'm really hopeful that in 10 years that I'm going to be the senior rabbi of maybe of a similarly large and successful congregation. And hopefully it's a place that people find to be resonant in their lives in terms of their spirituality and emotional safety and security and development, and also a place that pushes them also. And so I want to be, ideally, I have ambitions of being a successful senior rabbi and doing things, hopefully serving the American Jewish community. But really, my hope is that I'm part of a community and part of a team of people leading and supporting a community that leads and supports and pushes its members.
You mentioned teams. Sox or the Dodgers?
Sox or the Dodgers? Well, so I'm from Chicago, so and my family's from like the north side, so it's the Cubs actually. Those are our teams. But I've heard good things from Aaron Levin about the Dodgers, so I guess if it had to be, it has to be.
I don't know if anybody's asked this question, and I do apologize for running it in and out on you, but
Okay.
we have a significant portion of our community that's interfaith marriages.
Yeah.
As you know, one of the leaders in the conservative movement, one of the leaders in the conservative movement who was pushing for acceptance is Rabbi Vogel. In terms of interfaith marriages and congregants, I know that you've already said that you welcome them, but where do you see an interfaith couple coming into the community? Where do you see that landing? Do you see that as they remain an interfaith couple? Do you see that as welcoming them in the hopes that they're going to move forward to conversion? What do you see? What are your thoughts?
I'd like to think that I would, in terms of where a couple, lands when they come to be a part of the community, is the same actually regardless of whether a partner is Jewish or not, or if both partners are Jewish or not. In that, I would want the community to be able to support and encourage them to further their obviously their relationship to each other and be a supportive place for them in their relationship to each other, and also, hopefully, in supporting relationship to their sense of spirituality and hopefully Judaism. I think Judaism has for a really long time been really wary of people converting to Judaism. And I think my personal feeling is that one of the great challenges to this particular moment where we now find ourselves in Jewish history that that non-Jews want to marry Jews, is that we're not used to that idea. And we still treat with suspicion people who might be potentially members of our community, and we don't know how to deal with them because we're like, oh, why? Why would you want to be here? Why? And if you're an interfaith couple, why do you actually want to come to a synagogue? What are you doing here? We are very suspicious of that. And I think that comes from centuries of well-founded concerns of people who are outside. And we need to be really welcoming. And that might mean conversion one day. I think it's inappropriate to say that, like, oh, by a certain point we want all of these couples to, the non-Jewish partner to convert, because that's unrealistic and also doesn't allow a person to be an individual within the community who has their own individual wants and needs and reasons for membership. And I think that if the clergy, and I think this is true regardless of the state you're in, if the clergy are supportive of the individual and say, look, we can't let you do everything, but there are ways that you can be a part. And by the way, like, there's a pathway to be connected and pathway to be, sort of a fully able to participate in all of the ritual, pieces of the community as well. And we'd like to, think and encourage you to think about that. And maybe that happens maybe those conversations happen, in the first year and don't happen for another 2 or 3 years, or 10 or 20 years. But that there's an openness and an encouragement that says, we think Judaism's valuable. Right? Ostensibly, by being a member of a conservative shul, you think that Judaism is valuable, and there's something worthwhile about being Jewish and a Jewish identity. And so if we really believe that's true, then we owe it to all of our members to encourage them to further their Jewish identities. And if that's thinking about, becoming Jewish and starting and taking on a Jewish identity, that might be one way. And with, members who are already Jewish and born Jewish but don't, act or do Jewish in many, many ways, that we should be encouraging them as well.
There is a growing trend among conservative rabbis to adopt causes. Aaron Alexander has gun violence. Sharon Brous has immigration. Noah Farkas has homelessness. Do you have a cause?
Does this count as politics from the Bima? Okay. It's really hard. One of the challenges with being in rabbinical school, as opposed to being a rabbi, right, out and working, is that we don't have a lot of time for causes. And because we're like full-time students and we're really, really busy and focused. Let's see, the closest thing I have to a cause, and I haven't done that much with this, but my chaplaincy experience was with individuals who had been incarcerated and now were returning home and helping them find services, social services, providing pastoral care. And one of the reasons it was a really powerful experience for a lot of reasons, but one of the things I actually appreciated the most about it was that it made me think seriously about the idea of tshuva, of repentance, and what it means that in Judaism we at least tell ourselves that we take repentance as an idea seriously. And it might be one of the most serious ideas that Judaism has, that someone is actually capable of change and growth and development. And I think that's something that I'm interested in pursuing potentially as a cause, is thinking about how do we work with people who are formerly incarcerated? How do we recognize the incredible difficulty that people, not just people who are outside of our community, but also Jews who have been incarcerated, the like really deep challenges that they're facing. And if we take sort of seriously the notion that prison or jail can serve as a means of doing a type of repentance, of doing the time, then if that's really true, and we might not all agree about that, I know plenty of people who would strongly disagree with that statement, but if we take that to be serious, then how can we welcome people back into the community? And maybe it's not in this particular community, but these are people who could be our people. These are people who could be our neighbors, who could be part of our lives. And at the very least, that type of practice of working with those types of individuals or people who've had those types of experiences might allow us to broaden our own conceptions of the people in our own lives of like who've done wrong and who are trying to make amends and trying to repair that which has been broken. And so that's something I'm really passionate about. I don't know exactly how to make that my cause. I don't know if I want that to be my cause in particular, but it's something I think because tshuva is such an important concept in Judaism, that's something that I'm really seriously thinking about. Okay, how can I bring those ideas into my rabbinate?
Well, our time is about up. We want to thank you for all of your time and answering questions and making yourself present and available. Before we wrap up, if you have any final words, and then we could go on with the Purim Carnival.
I don't want to keep anyone from the Purim Carnival, because as we learned yesterday, we're supposed to be happy, and interviews are happy, but they're complicated types of happy. I just want to say, again, from myself and from Heather, how appreciative we are at the entire Temple Aliyah community for really welcoming us in, making us feel that this is a really wonderful, special place. And as I've mentioned to a couple of different people in different conversations, part of the rabbinic interview process, and you guys have been experiencing this over the course of the past couple of weeks, but we've also been experiencing this over the course of the past couple of weeks, is it requires an intense amounts of imagination. We have to spend a lot of time thinking about what our lives could be. And you have to spend a lot of time thinking about what your next rabbi could be, or who that person could be and how they would fit in. And we spend a lot of time thinking about where would we live, and who would be our friends, and who would be our people, and what would our community look like. And I just want to say thank you, because you've made it so easy to imagine what it would be like here. And it's really, I think, a testament to the sort of vibrancy, the excitement, the energy in the community. And it's been a really wonderful weekend. So thank you so much, and Shavua Tov, and enjoy the Purim Carnival.